Midnight Radio Episode 1. Students in my city, New York City, have access to a pretty diverse and well balanced school system. Obviously, there are flaws with it, there are flaws in every school system, but students here are treated to a better array of schools than many across the country. Some of those schools are the 8 specialized high schools within New York City. Those specialized high schools have only one entrance requirement, and that is a high enough score on a exam that every student who applies for these schools has to take. That test has long been lauded as a merit-based and fair standard for entrance. Recently, it's come under a lot of criticism, particularly for its seeming exclusion of certain minorities. I say certain minorities, even though the news articles that people will read say that it excludes minorities in general. I say that because most of the students in the school actually are minorities. It's dominated by a large number of Chinese, Korean, Indian, Bangladeshi, Greek, Jewish students. And somehow, this test has resulted in a very, very small number of Black and Latino students. A New York Times article recently said that in the past year, only 7 Black students were admitted to Stuyvesant. Stuyvesant is the #1 school on that list. The schools, by the way, are ranked by the amount of money they receive from the federal government and not from the federal government, sorry, from the bonds that are put together by the state, city, and federal government. So Stuyvesant receives the most money, has the most funding, has the best facilities, and the other schools, Bronx Science, Brooklyn Tech, etc., line up after that in similar fashion. Now, 7 Black students getting in is alarming because that is the lowest number that they've seen since this problem became apparent. 3 years ago, the mayor of our city, current Mayor Bill de Blasio, decided he would try to deal with the situation. He tried to implement a secondary screening system, if you will. That screening system would take grades into account. It would take neighborhood into account. Obviously, this was met by a lot of pushback from alumni of the schools, government officials who believe in the schools' ability to constantly produce high-performing students who go on to enter excellent colleges, work in STEM fields, and generally succeed. The only issue was that this would remove the meritocratic requirement of getting into the school. You have to start accounting for people's income and what neighborhood they live in, and do they get food stamps, do they get free lunch at school, and all those things were proposed as a way to change the exam to make it more fair. That didn't work. It was met with a lot of resistance. There's a lot of schooling elite in New York. Instead, they decided to change the exam to make it more fair in terms of preparation. So one of the major criticisms of the exam is that students within New York City schools are actually unable to prepare for the exams by studying materials provided at school. To many people, this has for a long time seemed a little strange. People have complained that how can you offer a program for which private tutoring or some sort of extracurricular that requires financial investment is almost mandatory? How can you require this kind of standard for a set of schools that is available to all of New York City students? This criticism, you can take it as you will. It is an exam with the same requirements for everybody, and a consistent number of students continues to get into the school. It's a highly competitive exam, and lots of students go take the exam, get in every year, right? So you can take that argument as you will. What they ended up doing to the exam was actually taking the exam and changing it. So one of the sections of the exam on the literature portion of the exam requires students to take a paragraph, a 5-sentence paragraph with a leading sentence. So a 6-sentence paragraph, sorry. It requires them to take that 6-sentence paragraph, break it up. It is broken up. It is broken up and it is scrambled. And it is the student's job to unscramble the paragraph. It is worth 2 points on the exam. It's a 100-question exam. Those questions are worth 2 points each. So the test's total number of questions used to be 95, but those questions were worth 2 points each. And if you screwed up any one of the orders, then you lost the whole 2 points. This part of the exam was removed from the test, and it was replaced by a total of 14 extra questions. Those questions were in the literature section, and they made the test, in my opinion, as I've spent a significant amount of time both tutoring and studying for the exam, as I am an alumni of one of the schools, it got harder. It got significantly harder. And students rose to the challenge, and they continued to get in as they used to. But what this might have ended up doing, well, the numbers certainly show that it did. What this ended up doing was further disadvantage the students who couldn't make it in the first place. The fewest number ever recorded of black students getting into Stuyvesant is not a good headline coming after an exam change meant to benefit those people. It's a little strange. When I attended the schools myself, I found obviously not the numbers that people see at other schools, but I saw a very diverse crowd, and I had plenty of Black and Latino students around me. So one can make the argument that these changes have been not so good for the system, and they don't seem to have worked, and that modifying the exam may have inadvertently made it even more untenable to get in without some sort of private tutoring. Those questions are tough. So whatever they plan on doing, I hope they certainly roll it back. There's got to be a better way to make this exam fair, to make the student body look more like what New York City looks like, if that's at all achievable. The other thing I wanted that really, really excited me today, Google Stadia. Stadia is looking like it could turn out to be one of their best projects, although Google really does have this terrible, terrible habit of shutting down a bunch of their products. They've had several product closures. Glass failed. That was one a lot of people got behind, although the reasons for that were understandable. The one that stood out to me the most was when a woman who had Google Glass on walked into a bar, and there were some people inebriated at the bar, and they were uncomfortable with her having a device that could record on her face while people were drinking. And the owners asked her to leave. She took it to court, and turns out the establishment can remove people that seem to disturb their rules or their policies or just how people are feeling in general. So I don't think society was ready for that one. I think a Google Glass without a camera here would probably be a better idea. Maybe lasers for some sort of tracking, but the idea of being able to record 24/7 just the way your eyes see is a little disconcerting. Although you could argue that that's kind of what happens today, right? We walk around with our phones, we can record stuff in an instant. Almost nothing goes by nowadays without being caught on some kind of camera. So that, I can only imagine that'll persist. But yeah, an AR version of Google Glass is probably the way to go. But anyway, going back to Stadia, Stadia looks like it could actually turn out to be a solid product. And if it is, if it's done right, it needs to be done right. I think that's one of the biggest problems with this kind of technology. It's not new technology by any means. We've actually been able to do this from our own homes for quite a while. Gamers will know the technology known as NVIDIA Game Stream, which allows you to keep your gaming computer running at home, and you can run games, process the games on your computer at home, and stream the video signal via your high-speed internet to any device of your choice that installs the that particular technology will only work with NVIDIA Shield and a few other select devices. But there's an open source technology based on NVIDIA Game Stream called Moonlight Game Stream, which allows you to do this in an open source, very free manner, and it takes inputs, and you can put it on a Chromebook, you can put it on a phone, you can put it on anything with a screen that can run Chrome, basically. That's most of your devices. So that really is the same technology we're talking about. The only thing different here is going to be the shared hosting kind of scenario and the multiple data centers and being able to stream such large quantities. And there's also the logistics issue. I mean, NVIDIA has been trying to do this for a while. NVIDIA has tried for the last 2 or 3 years to come up to make their service GeForce Now profitable, and I don't think they've been able to do that because they're still in beta. They're still giving it out for free to people to see if they can get this stuff to work, and there are lots of people on Reddit with connection issues and processing issues and input lag issues, and these are all kinks that they have to work out. So the service needs to work. That's one. The second thing is that it actually needs to be priced properly. Now, people throw away $10 subscriptions, $12 subscriptions like into the water, right? YouTube Premium, Spotify, Netflix, Hulu, this, that, right? But once you start paying like 20, it's like, what am I paying for? Right? 20 is like starting to become more like a real bill. So if they can get it at that sweet price, that 14, 15, something like that, if it works out in that price range, this thing could really work. And if it works, it could really change the way games run. I mean, games right now are one of the biggest issues is that accessibility. I want to play Assassin's Creed, but I got to buy a PS4, or I got to buy a gaming PC, or this or that, right? That makes it difficult. AAA games become something that is reserved for gamers, people who spend money on a certain type of machine and have the spare income to play these games. But if you make it $15 a month, I think a lot of people would sign on. I think anyone that can start to play without buying a machine standalone in their house and can suddenly play The Witcher or Assassin's Creed on the train ride home that takes an hour because they've got their controller and their laptop on them and a solid 4G connection on the whole ride or something like that. That could really work out. I would love to see that implemented. Recently, mobile phones have become so good that games are starting to run on them, and I've started to have quite a bit of fun playing PUBG Mobile and Fortnite with my friends on mobile. And it's strange, I never really thought this day would come where people who generally are uninterested in games are suddenly able to play just because of such accessibility. It's really quite amazing to see. Definitely quite amazing to see. Yeah, that'll conclude episode 1. Thanks for watching.